right. Hi, everybody. I'm Lydia. I'm on the Flatiron marketing team, and I am excited to welcome you to the Meet the Mentor series. In this series, we're interviewing some really amazing mentors who are often facilitators of our courses here at Flatiron School, and we're getting to know them and hearing more about their stories. Today, our guest is Jenna Hunt. Welcome, Jenna.
Hey, Lydia,
And
thanks for having me.
hi. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on these days?
Yeah, so my name is Jenna. I am a director of engineering at a small AI consultancy. So I'm working a lot on delivering engineering projects that are related to AI with large enterprise companies. So really exciting space to be. I know we hear about it a lot, especially in the news of what's going on. It seems like it's changing every day. So awesome place to be in.
That's awesome. And now you're at Blend 360, that's right?
Yeah.
So what is your role? Can you explain your role more at Blend 360 and what excites you most about what you do there?
Yeah, so I lead our US engineering department. I also serve as a delivery lead for our projects. So we have a global delivery center, and I'll be put on a client project and I make sure that the engineering work gets done. And so what needs to be prioritized, how that translates to actual engineering tasks, and then leading engineers to be able to produce high quality work. I started my career as a software engineer, so I like to be really technical, and I find myself in the weeds of some of the tech implementation, probably more so than I have time to, but that's sort of the high level of my day to day.
Now, do you find yourself gravitating toward the weeds? Do you kind of accidentally seek them out?
Yeah, it's not even accidentally. I fully seek them out. My engineers always make fun of me because they'll give me the high level overview and I'll dig deeper and be like, well, how is that processed on the back end? And when I was an engineer, I was working in really low level code and full on-prem systems. So I've done more, how does this work and how do we shave certain seconds or milliseconds off to make something faster, and really core optimization work. So I love the weeds of any kind of technical projects.
That's awesome. Um, so I was wondering, can you walk us through your career journey and maybe explain some or share some pivotal moments that shaped your path?
Yeah, so I started off as a computer science major. I went to the University of Maryland, and right out of school, I took a job with Comcast, NBC, and Universal. It was an expedited leadership program, so they actually moved me all over the country. Every 6 months, I would move to a different team, a different city, and a different tech stack. So I
Wow.
got a lot of really great exposure to. My first role was in platform engineering on security cameras. My second role was at DreamWorks within their data engineering department. So I got to see kind of movie production and how that all worked. And then my third role was on a data engineering, their data platform team. And so that data platform team handled all of Comcast's network data. After engineering and building that platform, I moved into leadership on that team for a couple of years. And then I made the jump to consulting. Um, I've been in consulting for the past 2 years, and I really am someone who you'll kind of see through my career. I love to learn. That's so important to me. And so with that, I'm able to kind of every 3 months, every 6 months, whatever, engineer, work on a different solution in a different capacity, a different company. And with that, it's really kept my skills sharp and given me a really diverse portfolio of technologies to work with.
Yeah. So, what inspired you to pursue a career in tech to start with? And then, how did you land your current role?
This is going to sound crazy, but I just wanted to prove that I could. I started the University of Maryland in 2014, and I didn't necessarily fit that tech persona at the time, where it was very, kind of nerdy, video games, introverted. None of those words resonated with me. And I thought the space was interesting. I knew it was ever changing, and I took a chance, and it's been really cool. I think landing that first role was really always continuing to be myself instead of what people wanted me to be. You know, I was a strong engineer. I had to find the confidence to say, hey, I'm good at this. I know how to do it. And practicing interviewing, knowing those skills, but ultimately letting my personality shine. And so people could say, like, okay, she's someone that we could mold. I think, you know, I do a lot of hiring of engineers as well. And one of the things that I look for are people that are willing to learn and capable, right? So you need to know your fundamentals and the foundational skills, and then being able to demonstrate that you're someone that cares, is passionate, will try, wants to put their self into it, I think are where some of my most successful people have been.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did your education play a big role in your journey? If so, how did it influence where you are today?
I think my education was important. I think it gave me the foundation that I needed to be able to speak the language of the people that I needed to talk to. What I think so valuable about Flatiron Schools in this program is a 4-year education is really expensive and it takes a lot of time, where something like this lets you speak the language, and then the rest of it is what you're willing to put into it, who you're willing to connect with, talk to, work for. Maybe you want to build your own thing, dream big. And so I'd say my education gave me the foundation, but it wasn't the defining factor. I think being able to speak the language is what was most important there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So throughout, speaking of education, kind of going to go into some lessons learned questions here. Throughout your work journey, is there one lesson or insight that has stuck with you and continues to guide you from your career?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There's a lot of lessons that I've learned. I think the biggest thing is finding your advocates and your allies. And I know that's not as technical of a lesson, but I struggled with a lot of imposter syndrome, particularly early in my career. I was put on a team with 18 senior engineers. These people all had 10 plus, and then there was me. You know, everyone could do it faster than me, could do it better than me. And each one of them, and this was a really special dynamic, but each one of them was an advocate and an ally for me. And I could learn what that meant and what I needed from that, and then seek out those people where instead of feeling insecure, I felt capable. I felt confident. They put me in situations where I wasn't going to crash and burn because they were there to help me, but I was going to be pushed. I think that is the biggest lesson, is finding those people. And on the flip side, if you're in a dynamic where you don't feel that sense of psychological safety, of trust, leaving, you know, even if it's a cool project or whatever, it's not worth your mental health. And so tech is high pace. You know, we have these big jobs, big opportunities, but there are high expectations with those as well. So
Yeah,
that's what I always look for.
yeah, that's awesome. I like the way you worded that too. I think having people who advocate for you is not something you always think to look for, but it's really, really valuable, and yeah, great for mental health and for your career too, to feel like you have that support.
Yeah.
Was there a moment where you faced a major challenge or failure, and how did you grow from it?
It's a good question. These are all good questions. I think I'm going to bring it back to my education for this one, just because, you know, this is the part of career that students are working towards. But I was that kid that was so scared to fail in school, and anything that wasn't perfect wasn't good enough for me. And when I went to school and started doing tests and grades in a subject that I didn't have any familiarity with, you know, I was failing. I failed tests, and it was an expectation because a lot of our classes were graded on a curve, but it drove me to a point of, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough. And that's really what started a lot of that self-doubt. And so that's probably been the biggest challenge, particularly in my education days, to be able to say, like, I'm failing these tests. I'm stressed. I don't know what that means. I have some uncertainty. And instead of being so hyper focused on the grades, go back to my content and my understanding. Because ultimately, if you go through a program here at Flatiron School and you have a mentor or facilitator that gives you an A because, they're nice and that's what happens, that's not going to translate, right? And so really being able to focus on comprehension and taking that lesson through my career of, instead of looking for the 5 stars or looking for the award, looking for the understanding to drive results. That's something that sticks in the back of my brain. And, it comes back from those failed days of, they'd pass out the papers and we'd flip it over and I'd see the 40% and freak out and have to go to the counselor. But,
Yeah, it's so true. I feel like I've learned growth mindset more as an adult than I ever did in school. In school, so much of what we do is like, I guess, pass fail, or you feel like you have to get at least 90% above, or you have failed. Whereas there are always going to be things to improve and ways to grow. And that's actually the whole journey. So we have to learn to appreciate it and love it.
Yeah, I don't know if I love it quite yet, but I appreciate it for sure.
But I feel like once we can accept it, that like that the resilience is just a sign that you're learning something and that all of life is going to be learning. It makes everything so much more enjoyable day to day.
Yeah.
But you offered the perfect segue because you brought up mentorship, and that's the next series of questions. I wanted to focus on mentorship. So how did you first get connected with Flatiron School, and what drew you to the school?
So I've been teaching in my free time probably for the past decade. It's a huge passion of mine. I also really love the idea of shaping that next generation of our tech employees, and so that's what drew me initially to Flatiron School, is seeing this opportunity where students could come and make a change in their career and be supported and really actually be prepared for some of these entry-level jobs. I had some friends who had done courses through tech boot camps, and I really loved that model as an alternative of making this opportunity and this career accessible for people from any kind of financial background or economic status or even career path. My students this year, some were in finance, some were project managers, some were realtors. It's a really cool way to diversify. And I think people with untraditional backgrounds make the best team, right? Because you're bringing in different perspectives. So that's what drew me here. And I really have enjoyed the curriculum. I think it's high quality and they're focused around tangible skills that will give you a way to land that job and to be successful in the field. So again, it's about speaking the language. And I felt that the curriculum here prepared students to be able to speak that language.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like your note about the different disciplines and like how that just kind of enriches a team and makes things more interesting from different backgrounds. You kind of already answered my next question, which was what inspired you to become a mentor. Is there anything you would want to add to that, or do you feel like you've kind of covered that one?
No, just that you guys can do it. You can be successful here and use your mentors, leverage these people because they have industry experience and they obviously signed up to do this and for this role because they want to help.
Yeah, that's good. Was there someone who influenced your career path and who knowingly or unknowingly mentored you?
Oh gosh, I know everyone. I've been fortunate to have a lot of mentors. The one that sticks out was actually my first manager right out of school. I had a female manager, and that was the first time I really had a strong female role model within that work environment. And she would sit there and talk to me and go through kind of my career goals. She knew I wanted to go into leadership and management. She knew that I was technical and had rooms to grow. And she would always put me in positions where I was stretched and stretched to things that I didn't think I could do, but supported. So one of my first projects she gave me to own, and this was only like 3 or 4 months right out of school being on the team. I was working with security cameras, and we were launching a new camera that had Bluetooth onboarding, which is probably dating me that hadn't existed for these cameras. They were all like plug-in type situation. But so I was responsible for engineering how that onboarding flow worked. And with that, I had to communicate. So we were the platform team, so that middleware engineer team. And I had to communicate with the hardware team, the iOS app team, the Android app team, and the web app team, as well as a full project manager, and then out to executives as well. That actually ended up going all the way up to the CTO and president of Comcast Technology. So it was not a small role for someone who was 22. And I really just valued that she let me do it. She gave me the engineering support. I had the whole support of the team, but I got to drive it. When people would ask her questions in meetings that I knew the answer to, she would just say, I don't know, talk to Jenna. And even though she did know the answer, that has been one of the most empowering things I've ever seen a leader do. And it's something I try to take with me of people will often go based on seniority, go based on age, go based on whatever their bias or preference is. And if you do go into a leadership role, to be able to empower your people instead of just answering the questions that are directed at you. And that's what she taught me, and if I didn't know the answer for whatever reason, it was not to make me feel dumb. It was, I'm here, I got you, no problem type thing. So that's the one that comes to mind.
That's a great tip. I like that. Even if she knew the answer, she would say, I don't know, you should ask Jenna. That's awesome. And yeah, very empowering. What has been the most rewarding part of mentoring students so far?
Oh gosh, I love seeing it when they get it. That's my favorite thing. This curriculum is hard. Anything in technology, it's challenging. And I remember going through school and struggling with it. And some of our sync sessions, we turned full into office hours. There was no time to talk about what's going on into industry. And I loved when a student would bring me a problem they had been struggling with, and we'd work together as a group to solve it. Everyone has different learning styles. For me, the most effective one has always been teaching. And so I try to create some of that community within my group. And it is so fun to be able to have them take and present their code and the problem and watch the other students be able to point them in the right direction and lead them. And then you get this, well, sometimes you don't get the aha moment, but when you get the aha moment, that's my favorite, because to me, that's not memorization. That's not learning a pattern and being able to reproduce it. It's true comprehension. And I think that's what's so key to being successful here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I totally agree. I learn better, or it like solidifies better if I have to teach it to somebody, because it's the kind of communicating, what am I actually saying? What have I actually learned? Seems to make a big difference in what sticks. If you could give one piece of advice to someone just starting out in tech, what would it be?
I'd say go for it and believe in yourself. I am in the position I am today. So I'm 28. I'm a director at an AI consultancy. And it is because I applied to things that I didn't necessarily think I was qualified for. And I found people who could see that I was, and encouraged. And so don't just be that person that has AI write their resume, blind applies to jobs. Go out there and make something happen. Reach out to people on LinkedIn, make connections, go to city meetups, put yourself out there and do the uncomfortable things that make you stand out. One of my projects was fully open source through the Apache Foundation, and they hired a lot of their engineers based on who was contributing to the project. And they were saying these people have interests and they're doing it. So there are a lot of really creative ways to land the role that you want. And I'm not the biggest fan of cold emails. I actually get quite a few of them and they go right to trash. Maybe some people are better than me, but putting yourself out there in the community and showing up to things that resonate with where you want to be and believing in yourself. I didn't think I was qualified for a director position. And then I got in there and I was like, okay, I can do this. I've done this. This is how this translates and that kind of thing. So that's my advice is go for it, but do the work. They're not just going to hand you the job because ChatGPT or some LLM wrote the resume custom to the job description. And be honest, be honest about what you know and what you don't know. It's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the kind of double, or I don't know the right word for it, but pairing, go for things that you don't know that you're qualified for, but also being honest about what your experience truly is and just seeing what kind of relationships you can build from there. That's really good advice. Kind of moving into a different section, I want to talk about your future goals. And so my first question is, what's something new you're learning or exploring right now, and why does it excite you?
Oh, my whole life is agentic workflows. It's kind of this buzzword hot topic that nobody really knows a ton about. And so that's been something really cool of how does that apply? How, we're all used to this now prompting system, right? So you put a prompt into an LLM and it gives you a response. And then this is something that's self-actuating, self-learning, where you have an agent that goes and works together with different agents and automates kind of every kind of process. And so that's been something, I obviously am new to, don't fully understand. And it's been really cool to see how it applies and how we can take that to a production environment, but also what are some of those concerns, right? So yeah. I think it's exciting because it's the future. I think it's coming and it's inevitable.
Yeah, that's cool. So this kind of ties in, but I'll go ahead and ask in case anything else comes up. Are there any projects or goals you're currently working on that you're particularly passionate about?
Yeah, stay tuned on that one. I'm currently working with a friend of mine to try to build something big. So we're not quite at the point to release anything, but that's that. And then I always have creative outlets. So I love to travel. It's a passion of mine. And so kind of started a journey through writing. And so those are probably my two passion projects outside of work right now.
That's exciting. I want to know what the secret project is.
Yeah, I know it's a little elusive. I'm sorry about that. We decided this like 2 weeks ago.
So this also ties into the last one, but looking ahead, what's a big dream or ambition you're working toward? I can't talk. What's a big ambition or dream you're working on towards your career? I can't talk. You know what I'm trying to say.
I got it. My big dream and ambition has always been impact. I'm not someone that is looking necessarily for a title, but for the impact and the way that I can do that. And I think what's really cool about the technology space is the way that it can elevate and expand the impact that you have the opportunity to make beyond just your community. So right now I work with a couple local nonprofits, and it's really working towards how do I expand that to make a bigger impact. So that's always been my big dream, is I don't need to change the world, but to change a few lives in a meaningful way is important.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, that was the majority of the questions. My next question is kind of our last one, and then I'm going to do some lightning round questions. So
I'm ready.
My next question is, who should we interview next? And this could be a mentor, a coworker, someone you learned from because you read their book, a podcast, really anything. And just anyone that you think it would be like we could share things with students and they would learn about tech.
Yeah, I might have to take this one and come back to you with it and think really intentionally on that. I would love to see maybe interviews extended beyond some of the mentors and facilitators and go towards people that run community programs and stuff like that. I think there's really unique things that can be done there, and as well as maybe, department heads at universities. I think that's a really interesting perspective to kind of contrast the two. Because I'm sure with mentors, you get the more corporate, more work experience, and it'd be an interesting angle to bring in.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I like that idea. Okay, I will switch to our lightning round questions, which really all that means is that I'm going to attempt to ask the questions faster. You can take your time. You can answer as quickly or slow as you want.
Is this like one word answers now? It's word that comes to brain?
It's just a series of questions that are like probably like personal or kind of less. Well, I'll just dig in. Okay. What's one thing you're listening to or reading right now?
Ooh, what am I listening to or reading right now? I'm really into historical fiction. So I'm reading The Personal Librarian, which is about a Black woman in history who was the first librarian to JP Morgan and how she had to hide her ethnicity to be able to get that career. Highly recommend.
What is one product or tool you're into right now?
One product or tool? Oh gosh, I should have prepped these questions. I don't know. This is crazy, but I don't know if you've ever seen the like round brush hair dryers, but it's great.
Yeah.
I have really curly natural hair and it doesn't curl in Denver. So that's been something I use. I know that's not tech related, so
it could be anything. And now I want to try this. Okay, this one you may not have the exact date for, but do you know when your next cohort starts?
I believe it'll be in June. So I'm actually headed out to travel for the month of May, and then I'll be back in June.
Awesome. Where can listeners find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to look me up, reach out. And yeah.
All right. And what made you smile this week?
This interview. No, that's really cheesy. That as well. What made me smile this week? I had a really nice meeting with some friends who had announced that they were pregnant with twins. So that was a really, really special moment.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for answering my many questions. I really appreciate your time. And I hope you have an awesome day. And we will be following up. We'll have a mentor page with all of Jenna's information. So if anybody wants to go to Jenna's page, you can get her LinkedIn links and all of that and see all of the Q&A as well. So thank you again, Jenna, and I hope you have an awesome day.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Lydia.